I don't know what happened. Can you all see my screen now? Alright, so let's go through the answer first. Okay. So here, this is Nobita's question. Alright, so this is tax payable like what we discussed last time. And what I have here is that I will start at sekejap. So you all have to bear with me. Ramai lagi yang baru request access nak join. Right, okay, so here we have done this question before this, but we stopped at employment income and I continued the question to include the personal relief. Okay, so here you can go back to your solutions, and this is where we stopped last time. Alright, I hope you all still have your answer with you, because I will continue from this part. Saya tak ulang balik dah daripada awal lah, because we have discussed this part. So alright, this is where we stopped last time. Total income 98283. So I hope you all can double check your answer. Alright, so we stop at total income, and then when we have relief, so what we have here is the additional information for Nobita. Okay. After a lengthy battle, so this is the new information for this question. So the rest too, the top part we already discussed before. And this is the second part. After a lengthy battle, Nobita obtained a divorce from his wife, Sandy, on 1st October 2019. Under the divorce order, the cost of the maintenance of their 2 children was ruled as follows. Alright, they have 2 children, Simon and Daisy. So Simon, Nobita was given full custody. The son is 19 years old and is attending university at UM, pursuing a course in accounting. For the relevant year, Nobita incurred 5,200 on the child's maintenance. As if for Daisy, Sandy obtained full custody of Daisy. The child is 17 years old and is taking private music lessons through correspondence from a college in New Zealand. The child hopes to qualify as a professional musician. Up to the date of the divorce, Nobita incurred 4,600, and thereafter Sandy incurred 5,400 on the child's maintenance. Daisy is a disabled child. So all this information is important. So we have also additional information. Nobita spent 1,200 on books and 2,000 on his smartphone. He deposited 7,000 into the National Education Savings Scheme for Simon, and he also donated 3,000 to an approved Malaysian charitable institutions. Alright. So for the donation, we have included in our right here. This is our aggregate income last time. Alright, and this is the donation 3,000, and that will give us a total income of 98283. Alright, so we can start with personal relief. So first of all, we have to include the self relief, which is 9,000, and the child relief. Alright, since Nobita get full custody for Simon, and Simon is, if you look at here, Simon is attending university. She is 19 years old and attending UM, pursuing a course in accounting. So this is a university. Simon is a university student, so the relief that Nobita can get is 8,000. Okay. Alright, Daisy. For Daisy, Nobita is entitled to get half of the child relief. Right? Why? This is because if we look at the information here, he obtained a divorce from his wife in 2019. But prior to that, if we look at the information here, up to the date of the divorce, Nobita incurred 4,006, which means based on this statement, before this, Nobita claimed for the child relief. But because of the divorce, he can only claim half. Why 6,000? Anyone? Why 6,000? Yes. Daisy is a disabled child, so 6,000 times half because of the divorce. So for a divorced couple, they can claim child relief half only, which means next year, Simon cannot claim for Daisy anymore because the custody of Daisy is actually belongs to the mother, to siapa nama wife tadi, Sandy, right? But for this particular year, since the divorce happened in October, so half of the year, the father still incur expenses, which means the father can claim for the child relief. And then he also has lifestyle relief here, 1,200 plus 2,000, right? 3,200. But the maximum is only 2,005 for lifestyle relief. And National Education Savings Scheme, 7,000. Because this is year assessment 2019, if you look at your book for 2018, the rate is not 7,000, it is 6,000 for year assessment 2019. The National Education Savings Scheme, the maximum amount is 7,000. So you just total the relief, total income minus all the relief, and the chargeable income would be 68783. Okay. Then we can continue to calculate our tax payable. The first 50,000, 1,008. So the balance would be 18,783 at 14%. So this is the tax payable for Nobita. Any questions? I already shared the answer dalam kita punya Google Classroom tu, so you can check your answer juga. No question If no question, we can proceed to capital allowance. Ada soalan tak? Oh, and then another thing is that whenever you see this part, dia incur 5,002 on the child maintenance, yang ni dia incur 4,006. Ini semua means nothing. Okay? We don't bother how much the father or the mother spend on the child's maintenance. The relief is depending on whether the child is a school-age children, going to universities or disabled. So the rest ni information ni semua kita tak it's not relevant. Alright, no question. If you have no question, I will continue with capital allowance. Tak ada, alright. Alright, this is regarding your quiz last week. I have marked and written your quiz, so well done to those yang dapat full mark 10 marks. But just to draw your attention to the calculation of balancing charge. In the quiz, the answer is a balancing charge of 15,000. So some of you, the one that I already written your quiz, you can look at your answer. I still give you full mark, even though by right, when you write down balancing charge, the figure should be in bracket. Why? It is because the sales proceed is higher than the residual expenditure. You cannot simply write balancing charge 8,000 without the bracket. So the bracket here means gain, which means this will be transferred to your adjusted income. So the format for this balancing charge and also balancing allowance is this one. I still refer to our part 1 notes, not yet part 2. So you can refer to your part 1 notes right here. Okay, alright. Okay, so here, this is the adjusted income from business. Whatever balancing charge that we have, we can add here, but the figure would be the figure without the bracket lah. But in our calculation of balancing charge dalam kita punya calculation earlier on, it must be in bracket. So because the residual expenditure is less than the sales proceed. Okay. Right. And then this is the format. But we will go back to this capital allowance later when we begin our business income topic. But for now, the calculation of capital allowance is focusing on the balancing allowance and also balancing charge. Okay, so this is the format. So when we have balancing charge, we have to add to our adjusted income. So for example, this is the total would be an A, and then we have to minus unabsorbed capital allowance brought forward. And also we have to add current year capital allowance and balancing allowance kalau ada. That would give us a B. So this is the statutory income from business. So the focus that I want to show you here is that the deduction of the capital allowance here, okay, restricted to the aggregate of adjusted income and balancing charge. For example, because kita dah buat balancing charge hari tu, as for balancing charge, you all know the amount that can be claimed is up to the capital allowance claim. So let's say, for example, here we have, okay, let's say the total here is 100,000. Alright. Your capital allowance, let's say your capital allowance here is 150,000. So we cannot minus 150 here. Kita boleh tolak up to 100 je dekat sini. And the 50 ni yang tak cukup ni will be carried forward to next year. Then that would be an unabsorbed capital allowance brought forward. So the capital allowance ni kita nak tolak kat sini is restricted to this figure je. Right? Kalau dia kurang, fine. Kalau dia lebih ni kita tak boleh tolak semua. We have to minus like here we have to minus 100,000, 50,000 will be brought to next year's figure and will be classified as unabsorbed capital allowance brought forward. But this one we will go back to this calculation nanti bila kita buat business income. Alright, so we have gone through the example here, 19 page 482, whereby the balancing charge is restricted to 39,000. Ini kita dah kira hari tu lah. So balancing charge mesti less than capital allowance claim. And for the balancing allowance, there is no restriction given on the capital on the balancing allowance. Alright, what about assets owned less than 2 years? Okay, for assets owned less than 2 years, any allowance in relation to that asset would be disallowed, which means you have to keep the asset for at least 2 years before you want to dispose. Otherwise, you cannot claim for the capital allowance. Dia as if you beli and you buat untung lah kan, you purchase and then you sell. So tak boleh, you must keep the asset for at least 2 years. Except by reason of the person's death. Kalau tak ada sebab lain, you cannot dispose less than 2 years. Otherwise, you cannot claim the capital allowance. Alright, this is the unabsorbed capital allowance that I talked before under paragraph 15, schedule 3. And the capital allowance from one business cannot be set off against the profits of another business. Like for example, this one individual, he or she has 2 types of business. So setiap business tu akan ada satu capital allowance and they cannot combine. Alright. Because capital allowance ni dia specifically dia belongs to one type of business. Ini yang tadilah, capital allowance exceed the adjusted income. It can be carried forward for the following year of assessment or the same business source. Sekejap Okay, Okay, it's a bit havoc today because I think by now you all already know that today is the 1st of July and UPSI is 100% fully operated today, no more work from home. Before this, kita buat system rotation, so for the lecturers boleh work from home except for academic staff yang ada pegang administrative post lah, so that we have to rotate. Macam saya, I have come to the office I think since May kot, but not every day lah, seminggu like 3 kali But starting today, everybody, all the lecturers have to come to office. So kecoh sikit lah. Ada yang memang for the past 4 months memang dia tak pernah datang office langsung. So hari ni ada yang tanya kafe buka ke, nak makan dekat mana. And then today semua tengah complain nak masuk dekat gate tu because today the guards ambil all the ambil temperature before this sebab tak ramai yang masuk. So because we have to apply online kalau nak datang office. But today not anymore. So tengah kecoh lah tu. Biarkan dia. Saya like, as you can see today saya bersiaran dari office because before this untuk Wednesday class, sebab class kita at 8, I have to do it at home sebab terlalu awal. But today since memang kena datang office, so yeah, here I am now from the office. Alright. So now I want you to go to our second part. Today we're going to do our second part of capital allowance. Alright. So this is the, if you look at the notes that I shared with you earlier on, I have actually included what I label as part 2 and also part 3. So today we're going to do part 2. Alright, so last week we have gone through capital allowance regarding plant and machinery. So today we will be focusing on industrial building. Right. Okay, so it is about industrial building allowance. So in accounting or financial accounting, what you have done so far when we talk about property, plant and equipment, PPE, building is included under PPE. So in PPE we have building, we have plant, we have machinery, motor vehicles, furniture, fittings, everything is in under PPE. But for taxation purposes, no, they separated the plant and machinery and also building. So that is why if we look at our part 1 last time, last week, what we have done last week is actually capital allowance for plant and machinery. Plant, machinery, heavy machinery, motor vehicles, furniture and fittings. But for today, the focus would be on industrial building. Alright. So for example, if the business has building and also plant and machinery, they have to compute the allowance separately. They cannot combine. But in our financial accounting, everything is can be classed under property, plant and equipment. Alright, so what is IBA? Saya guna short form tu dekat sini. IBA is Industrial Building Allowance. It is given to any person who has incurred qualifying industrial building expenditure either on the construction or purchase. Right? There can be 2 conditions of the building. Satu, they can construct by themselves. Secondly, they can purchase or both of an industrial building. We're talking about industrial building, not a residential building. So the allowance is not extended to the cost of land and incidental costs connected with land. Right? Technically, when you purchase a building, it is located on a piece of land and you have to usually pay for the price of the land and also the building. But for the allowance, you can only claim for the building, not the land. So the allowance is not extended to land and also cost connected with land, only the building. This is the standard rate. Senang. Kalau plant and machinery, motor vehicle semua, they have different rates. But for industrial building allowance, the initial allowance is 10% and annual allowance is 3%. And the allowance is deductible against the adjusted income. Ini macam biasalah kita buat for plant and machinery hari tu. Alright, so the allowance are therefore business specific, meaning it is available as a deduction only against the adjusted income from the relevant business source. Let's say you have a building for your business A, you can only claim allowance under business A adjusted income. You cannot claim industrial building allowance from your business A in your business B, so cannot. So any allowance which cannot be given full deduction for a particular year of assessment can be carried forward. Ini macam tadi lah, this will be unabsorbed capital allowance. Okay, the meaning. So the standards, Section 2 of the Income Tax Act, it defines industrial building as any structure erected on land not being plant or machinery. Dia mesti bangunan lah. And it can be defined more specifically as a building for the housing of machinery or plant or any descriptions for the manufacture of any product. Okay, so what are the examples of industrial building? Under Schedule 3, it is used for the purpose of a business, mesti guna untuk business. It is used as a factory, dock, wharf, jetty or other similar buildings, warehouse. Business is that of water and electricity, use connection with the working of a farm, or use mainly in connection with the working of a mine. So these are the examples of industrial building. Okay. Alright, entitlement to industrial building allowance. This is just like what we did with plant and machinery. The person must have incurred the capital expenditure. So you remember Krishnan and his brother, siapa saya dah tak ingat nama brother, kita buat exercise last week kan. So the person must have incurred the capital expenditure. The building must be an industrial building and the building must be used for the purpose of business, carried on by the person. Right, so you can go back to our last week example whereby this brother dia tak incur pun the capital expenditure even though the asset is used for his business, so dia tak boleh claim. Alright, next one is there, if you go back to our plant and machinery, basically the computation would be the same. You will start with number 1, qualifying expenditure. Okay, so one needs to distinguish two different modes of incurring the expenditure. Like I said before, one is construction and another one is purchase. Alright, so when you construct, you will incur different types of costs, and when you purchase, you will actually incur different types of costs, but both can be considered as qualifying expenditure. Alright, so the decision as to what qualifying expenditure is, to some extent, is determined by the manner of acquisition of the building. And again, any cost related to the land does not qualify. Let's say you're given list of costs, ada cost of land dekat situ, we cannot use that cost as our qualifying expenditure. Are you all with me so far? Okay, you all senyap betul semua chat dekat sini je. My other groups tu ada jugalah bunyi suara dia bercakap walaupun dia some chat, some they actually speak So you all very quiet. Semua saya kena baca chat kat sebelah ni je. Malu sangat ke? Or you cannot on your mic. Alamak, mak dengar lah tengah belajar. Alright, okay. Okay, circumstances where buildings are to be treated as an industrial building. Alright, sini very clear because we can see here mana tadi. Kita tahu lah we have factory, jetty, dock, wharf, warehouse. Ini semua kita tahu this is an industrial building. In some cases, there are also circumstances where buildings are to be treated as an industrial building. For example, building used for staff welfare, the canteen. Right, let's say we're talking about a factory. Di factory tu ada canteen, ada restroom, ada recreation room, ada bathroom for the employees. These can also be considered as industrial building. Building for accommodation of employees, hostel, quarters. Remember kita buat employment income last time, ada employee yang dapat hostel, dapat quarters tu. Okay, so the buildings can also be considered as an industrial building, but it must exclude the director, member of management, administrative or clerical staff. So for hostel quarters ni, the initial allowance that can be claimed is 40%. If there is a business of childcare center, okay, childcare center, the building of childcare center is also an industrial building, but the owner cannot claim for initial allowance, only annual allowance. Educational institution, sekolah, old folks care center, ini semua ni yang saya letak dekat sini ni. These are different rates lah. Kalau ikutkan generally, the rates for industrial building is 10% initial allowance and 3% annual allowance. Ini yang bangunan-bangunan yang special case. You can also refer to your textbook for different types of the different other types of industrial building. Alright, here comes the fun part. How to compute the qualifying building expenditure. This is very important because when you get this figure wrong, your capital allowance will be wrong. Okay, so the QBE, ini pun I can still use short form. This would be QBE. Last week, apa yang kita buat is qualifying plan expenditure, QPE. Right, you can use short form. Or whenever I use short form, at least you tak adalah fikirkan what is that QBE. Okay. Right, so capital incurred on the building and incidental costs are exclusively related to the building. For example, architect's fees. When you want to construct, you need architects to design the building. So you have to pay the fees to the architect. So architect's fees can be included as our capital incurred on the building. Preparing plans, including obtaining approval from the local authority. Okay, hantar approval untuk menteri daerah, whatever tu. Those can be included as QBE. Clearing the old site, including the demolition of any existing building. You purchase a land, ada bangunan lama dekat situ, you want to construct a new building, so you have to clear the site to demolish the existing building. It can be included in our capital incurred. Cost of construction, which include labor, material and other overhead costs. This is for construction. Interest expenses on loan borrowed to construct the building until its completion, just the interest portion, not the principal portion. Incidental expenditure on work which may be separately contracted. Okay, drainage scheme, installation of water, electricity, ni semua boleh masukkan in our QBE. The cost of installing fittings, wiring for electric supplies, fan, aircon and equipment, legal charges, stamp duty connected with the acquisition of the building. These are all expenditure that can be included in our QBE. Alright, give you one example here. Okay, this is our example one. XYZ Sendirian Berhad carries on the business of manufacturing safety belts. The company prepares its accounts to 31st December annually. In July 2019, it completed the construction of its own factory at the following cost. Alright, so here we have cost of land, legal fees for agreement for purchase of land, agreement with the rebuilding contractor, consultants fees and building plan, stamp duty for purchase of land and also construction cost. Compute the QBE. Can you compute now? So what is the QBE? Right, anyone? How much is the QBE? Okay, Ganesan give us 2090, right? What about the rest? What do you think? How much is the QBE? Alright, anyone? Nak cuba? Oh, kira tak ni? What is the answer? What do you think? Okay, Shu 2120. Okay, any other answer? 1510. Macam-macam nombor keluar. Okay, Misha 2120. Irwan, what? Oh, banyak nombor dia. 1586700. Okay, not sure. 2120. Mustafa tertinggal kosong. Alright, okay. So first of all, what we have to do is we have to identify which cost that we can include as our QBE. So QBE here we are talking about the building, qualifying building expenditure. Can we include price of land? Cannot. No, okay. So land cannot, sebab tadi dah kata when we're doing the qualifying building expenditure cost related to land, no. Okay, let's look at the legal fees. Agreement for purchase of land, can we include? Oh, dah surah dah nampak dah salah. Can we include agreement for purchase of land? No. Right, yes Aisyah, betul. Tak boleh because this is for the purchase of land. Can we include the legal fees for agreement with the building contractor? Yes. Right. Consultants fees and building plan, yes? Yes. Stamp duty for purchase of land? No. Construction cost? Yes. Total lah, berapa tu? Can you give me one figure? The one that I ticked to? Which means from this cost, you can only take agreement with the building contractor, 10,000, consultants fees and building plan, 80,000, and also the construction cost of 1510. Yes. So can you get it now? Kita hanya ambil the cost for building, land semua kita tak nak. So that would be 1600,000. Any questions untuk yang ni? Boleh so nak mana yang dapat figure lain tadi tu, you can see where you get it wrong. Okay. Ada yang dapat 1.6 million tak tadi? Before I share the answer. Mesti ada kan? Alright, can we move on? Any question untuk soal example 1? Baru example 1, I have a lot of examples to go. Okay kan? So especially yang tadi terbabas sikit tu so do not include the cost for the land. Anything to do with land kita memang tak masukkan. Okay. Next one. Okay, ini a bit tricky Kalau kita tengok dekat sini, this part kita tahu this is actually construction of land, tak masuk mana-mana pun. There is no allowance for land. kita tengah buat building allowance je. Land nanti dia akan masuk dalam our calculation, dia akan masuk sebagai land cost je lah. Because we're doing taxation so kalau untuk accounting, land akan masuk as your asset lah. So here untuk capital allowance, land tak ada. There is no capital allowance on land. Because if we go back to accounting kan, there is no depreciation for land. That is why tak ada juga capital allowance untuk land. Sebab land harga dia akan appreciate so there is no point kita bagi allowance. Building yes, nanti dia akan depreciate juga. It can depreciate and also appreciate, but not for land lah. Land biasanya harga dia akan naik. So there is no allowance on land. Okay, ini just want to draw your attention because here we are talking about factory. Memang straight away kita tahu this is about building. Okay, but in some cases we are actually talking about plant and machinery. Okay, dia ialah plant and machinery, tapi we can see that it is plant and machinery deemed industrial building. Kalau case macam ni, the plant and machinery ni boleh claim for IBA, bukan capital allowance for plant and machinery. Alright, in certain circumstances, plant and machinery is very important. Sebab nanti tak nak you all get confused because here we are not talking about building, we are talking about plant and machinery pula. Tapi plant and machinery can be treated as an industrial building. Pelik sikit kan? Dia bukan building, dia plant and machinery, but it can be treated as industrial building under paragraph 67 schedule 3. Okay, how? Okay, it is in situations where capital expenditure is incurred on preparing, cutting, tunneling or levelling land for the purpose of installing plant and machinery, and such expenditure exceeds 75% of the aggregate cost of plant and machinery and the cost of installation. So the total cost will be treated as an expenditure on building. Right. For example, this company dia ada plant and machinery and dia kena install the plant and machinery dekat satu kawasan. But in order for the company to install the plant and machinery, dia kena prepare, cutting, tunnel, level, dia kena demolish bangunan lama, dia kena ratakan tanah semua untuk install the plant and machinery, and the cost tu lebih tinggi dari cost of the plant itself. In that case, dia boleh claim for industrial building allowance. Sekejap lagi saya share example. Right. So this is the example. Paragraph 67, 75% rule. Saya tak tahu kenapa taxation ni dia suka sangat bagi rules kan. So kalau tengok last week kita ada 75% rule, kita ada 10% rule. So here we're talking about 75% rules. Okay, this is where cost of preparing, cutting, tunneling or levelling land in order to prepare a site for the installation exceeds, dia mesti lebih dari 75% of the aggregate cost of the plant and machinery. So the expenditure is treated as QBE. Nampak tak? Dia plant and machinery, tapi dia punya cost akan jadi QBE, bukan QPE. Okay, for example, dia denotes by the letter P, L and E. Alright, for example, the plant and machinery cost denoted by P at cost of preparing, cutting, tunneling or levelling land. Kita ada L kat sini, and the P plus L would be E. Okay, katakanlah L ni more than 75% of E, then E will be treated as QBE. Dia akan dikira sebagai building, walaupun dia bukan building. But if L here less than 75% of E, then the P will be the QPE. P akan ikut sini. P akan jadi plant, qualifying plant. L will not be given any tax relief. Boleh faham tak? Baca dulu ayat ni before we go to example 2. Do not get confused because here we are not talking about building, we're talking about plant and machinery. But if the cost here ni lebih tinggi, more than 75% of this cost, so the total ni kita boleh ambil dia sebagai QBE. Tapi kalau less kita tak boleh ambil E, kita ambil P je, tapi P akan pergi jadi sebagai QPE, qualifying plant expenditure. QBE is qualifying building expenditure, walaupun there is no building in this example. Okay, any question? Kalau tak ada question, saya nak move on to example 2, the calculation for this one. Boleh Right, look at example 2. Cuba kira yang ni. Using the formula yang saya share tadi tu. Alright, so under this example, what we have here is WW Sendirian Berhad is in the business of manufacturing toys. So on 1st June 2019, the company bought one machinery, nampak machine we're not talking about building, which is to be installed in the factory. The cost of leveling the site for the installation amounts to 260,000. So here we have cost of machinery 85,000, cost of leveling the site 260,000, the total is 345,000. And you are required to calculate the allowances. Nampak tak? Dia tak mention pun dekat sini whether it is a capital allowance ataupun industrial building allowance, if any, under Schedule 3 of the Income Tax Act. Right, this is what we should do. Okay, so since the installation is 260,000 is greater than 75% of the aggregate expenditure, this one, right? Kita compare this one and this one. Okay, yang tadi kita label L dengan E tadi tu. Alright, so here our total is 345,000. If we multiply by 75%, that would be 258,750. Right, but now the installation cost is 260,000, which is greater than 258,000. Right, so the total cost of the expenditure is deemed to be QBE. So dia akan dapat IBA, dia tak akan dapat yang plant and machinery tu lah. Dia boleh terus pergi ke QBE. So the IBA claim for year assessment 2019 is ini rate, standard rates, initial allowance 10% times 345, kita boleh ambil total and annual allowance 3% times 345. So this is our industrial building allowance, that would be 44,850. Any question tak? This is the 75% rule, and we are not talking about building here. We're talking about plant and machinery. Okay, no question, Okay, alright. Rate, yes. Rate ikut yang standard je. 10 dengan 3. Part 1 tak ada. Part 1 ni rate ikut, kalau yang part 1 kita buat plant and machinery Shu. Ni sekarang kita buat building. This is rate for building. Kalau plant and machinery lain rate dia. Kalau plant and machinery dia 20 ni. 20 and 14. Ni bila dia dah jadi IBA, bila dia jadi IBA kita akan ikut rate untuk, nampak? Ini rate untuk building, bukan rate untuk plant and machinery. Sekejap. Let's look at example 2 pula. Alright, look at example. Okay, example ni tadi Alright. Okay, calculate example 3 ni. Cuba kira. Based, dia macam yang tadi juga this is still, we're still talking about plant and machinery. So can you decide whether this one is QBE or QPE? And soalan dia tricky juga dia tak ada mention dekat sini. I didn't mention whether ini ialah qualifying plant expenditure or qualifying building expenditure. I just mentioned qualifying capital expenditure. You have to decide whether ini ialah QBE or QPE. Qualifying building or qualifying plant. Okay, QPE. Man, Mirsha lagi. Any other answers? Why QPE? Ya, betul Hakim. It is a QPE because if you look at the percentage here, 200,000 divided by 300,000. This is 67% kan? So 67% is less than 75. How much is the QPE? Cuba jawab QPE. How much yang nak ambil ni? Mana satu akan jadi cost, mana satu akan jadi QPE kita? So kita dah kira percentage, yes, less than 75%. So dia bukan QBE, dia ialah QPE. Then how much is the QPE? RM? Which one? 100,000, 200,000 or 300,000? Yes. So the cost of plant ni akan jadi QPE 100,000. Okay, boleh This is less than 75%. Kalau more than 75 tadi kita ambil je total bawah ni. If less than 75 kita ambil yang atas je. The cost of plant and machinery je. Dan dia akan pergi sebagai qualifying plant expenditure. Right? Compared to this one tadi. Sebab dia more than 75%. Okay, dia akan jadi here, this one more than 75%. So total ni akan jadi QBE. So this one example 3 ni dia adalah QPE. Okay, boleh? Dia kan, senang je kan? Alright, yang lain okay Alright, if everything is okay, let's look at other example. Okay. Tadi for industrial building ni satu kita tengok if we can recap satu kita tengok the types the building, whether it is constructed or purchased, and then if it is constructed or purchased kita tahu we can only take the price or the cost related to the building, not to the land and then secondly whereby we have plant and machinery deemed as industrial building and we have to use the 75% rule. If the cost of installation to more than 75%, then the total cost of plant and machinery and also the installation would be our QBE. If it is less than 75%, like example 3, dia bukan jadi QBE, it will maintain as QPE and kita akan ambil cost of plant and machinery sebagai QPE kita. Okay, another thing is that sometimes only part of the building is used as an industrial building. Alright, let's say satu factory ni ada 10 floor, 7 floor diguna untuk as the factory and the 3 floors lagi diguna sebagai office. Okay, if that's the case, kita kena kira pula ada banyak rules 10% rule pula. Not 75, 10 je. Okay, this is where only part of a building is used as an industrial building. Bukan 100% factory. Ada juga bahagian yang dibuat sebagai office. So the whole cost is treated as QBE if the part that is not used in industrial in the business is less than 10%. Okay, if the cost of construction of the non-qualifying part exceeds 10% of the cost of constructing the whole building, then the IBA is given on the proportion that is in use as industrial building. Okay. Kalau yang dia tak pakai tu less than 10%, kita ambil semua SQBE. Kalau yang dia tak pakai tu more than 10%, then kita akan ambil percentage yang belongs to industrial building sahaja. Okay, let's look at next example. Okay. Right, can you try this example? Example 4. Right, what we have here is Kitty Sendirian Berhad has been in the manufacturing business since 2012. The company commenced a construction of a factory building on 1st March 2017 and completed the building on 1st December 2019. So the cost of land and building is as follows. Cost of land, legal fee and stamp duty on acquisition of land, architect fees, building plan for approval fee, construction costs, wiring and plumbing. Alright. 20% of the total floor space of the factory building was used as an office. Compute qualifying building expenditure. Right, so can you do it now? Kira QBE berapa? And when you get the answer, please share dekat our chat ni so that I can see. Okay, Nisha dapat QBE 1 million. The rest? What do you think? Oh, semua dah bagi saya 1 million. Okay, Ganesan 900,000 tak? Any other figure? $750. Lah, macam nombor ni. Okay, lagi? $101. $800,000. Okay. Alright. Those yang bagi saya 1 million tu, you are partly correct. Because from here, kita boleh pilih. First of all, kita kena pilih dulu from here, mana that can be included as our qualifying building expenditure. Cost of land, no. Legal fees on acquisition of land, no. Architect fee, yes. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. So this will give us 1 million. But do not forget this part. Dia kata 20%. Tadi rules kita tadi berapa? 20%. Tadi rules kita 10 dia kata if less than 10 kita boleh ambil semua. Sekarang dia kata dia pakai 20%. 20% is more than 10%. So, kita boleh kata 80% je building ni digunakan as industrial building So, yang jawab saya 800,000 tadi betul lah. Ya, betul lagi. This is where we have to use the 10% rule. Tak nampak soalan selebihnya. Allah, sedih. Saya dah tunjuk lah tadi bermula. 20% of the total floor space was used as an office. Which means bukan 100% ni dia guna sebagai factory. 80% je sebagai factory. Maknanya 80% je sebagai industrial building. 20% pakai office. Yes, kalau bawah 10%, let's say katakan dia kata dekat sini 5% je pakai sebagai office. Then kita boleh ambil 1 million. Now 20%, more than 10%, tak boleh lah. Do not get confused tadi rule of 75 dekat sana. Now kita pakai rule of 10 pula. But yeah, Misha, you're right. Kalau less than 10, kita ambil je 1 million. Sekarang more than 10 so kita tak boleh ambil 1 million tu. Kita kena tengok lah berapa persen yang dipakai sebagai industrial building. Okay? Any other question? Tak. So boleh because this one kita tengok percentage yang dia guna sebagai industrial building tu. Alright, if you have no question, I want you to complete this tutorial question. Do it now. I give you maybe 5 to 10 minutes untuk buat sekarang and we go through the answer together. But I need you to submit the tutorial dekat Google Classroom. Saya akan buat the platform untuk submit the tutorial ni. So after class you can submit. Saya bagi sampai next week hari Selasa lah for you to submit. But today I want you to do this tutorial question and kita discuss kejap lagi. 5 minutes cukup kot. Alright, so here you're given Southern Steel Sendirian Berhad, manufacturer of steel product for the construction industry. It makes up its account annually to 30th September. It acquired a factory building on November 2017 and 8 months later completed a construction of a new factory building to the purchase factory. Right, so the expenses incurred were as follows. In 2017, they beli building. In 2018, they construct a building. Right, so these are the costs. And both buildings were used in the manufacturing of steel products from 1st August 2018. Compute the industrial building allowance for Southern Steel for year assessment 2018 and 2019. Alright, so for industrial building allowance ni, kalau kita tengok tadi, the rate is 10 and 3%. So cuba buat dulu. Let me know if you need me to move on to the next slide. So this is the question dulu. Boleh I give you 5 to 10 minutes to complete this tutorial. Kita buat and kita terus discuss lah. Kalau buat sekarang hantar next week baru nak discuss, lambat jadinya. So we discuss terus. But please make sure everybody buat lah because I cannot see you kan, whether you buat or not. Right, try this question dulu. Move to the next slide. Okay. So you have to compute the IBA for 2 years, 2018 and also 2019. Okay, just to check with you, ada tak yang sign in tak guna My Guru, because in my attendance dalam My Guru ni I have 53 names sahaja. Kalau ada, please let me know. You can write down dekat chat ni pun boleh juga. Sebab dalam ni ada 53 je. Kalau ikutkan you all in this class ada 60. Cost of building. Okay, jap. Nota ni pun saya dah upload it's in our Google Classroom already. But like I said, for the notes apa semua ikut topik saya letak semua everything ikut topik. Even the video today pun saya akan masukkan under capital allowance lah. There are two types of buildings here. So what you have to do is you have to calculate both buildings separately. You cannot combine. So there will be two calculations for each building for 2 years. Ada yang dah siap tak? Okay, tak apa, take your time. Sebab kita tinggal pun tak banyak lah kan. Untuk part 3 ni I will go very fast je. Sebab ni semua you can read and kita tak ada calculate lah untuk yang ni. Okay, bagi saya figure apa ni? Figure IBA untuk 1 tahun, 2 tahun. Okay, factory 594. Kenapa ada land pula factory? Dia ada 2 je, purchase building dengan constructed building. Shu tu jawapan untuk mana? Purchase or constructed building? You have to separate tak boleh combine dua-dua building ni. Okay, what about the rest? Anyone wants to share the answer? That's QBE Okay, what about the rest? Can you share your answer here? Okay, Kifah sama dengan Shu. Lagi, any other answers? Ada tak? Yang lain dah siap belum? Can we go through the answer? Okay, 2018 and 2019. Okay, lagi? Any other answers? Janganlah kedekut, share your answer. Salah pun tak apa, no problem. Okay. Ada lagi nak try share your answer before we move on to the solution? Later you all have to share. Sekejap sebelum saya terlupa. I'll make sure we have the platform for you to submit. Alright, okay. Can we look at the answer now? Semua dah siap Ada yang dah siap tak nak share jawapan ni. Right, okay. So let's look at the question. So it's about this company and this company incur expenses for two types of buildings. So remember when we talk about building, it can be purchased building and also constructed building. But if you look at the cost related to the purchase and also construction, the cost is different. Alright, so here in 2017, the company purchased a building together with the land. Okay, land 250, factory 800,000. So land kita abaikan je because we only need the cost of land. Constructed building, okay, in 2018, construct a building, pay professional fees of 20,000, construction cost of 250,000, and also road and car park. Okay, even though this is road and car park, it is mentioned here, it is within the factory complex. So we can include this as our qualifying building expenditure. Okay, even though it is not a building, it is just a road and car park. Tapi dia together dekat dalam factory complex tu, then we can include. Right, additional information, both buildings were used in the manufacturing of steel products from 1st August 2018. So you have to compute the IBA for Southern Steel for year assessment 2018 and 2018 to 2019. Right. This is how you should present your answer. Let's start with purchase building. You cannot combine. Remember, kalau dia ada 3 jenis building, kena kira satu-satu. You cannot combine. So you will get different figure or different amount for residual expenditure and also capital allowance dia, the IBA dia. But in the tax computation, baru kita totalkan and include in our tax computation later. Format yang saya share awal-awal tadi kan. But for the IBA computation, kita kena asingkan. Right, so let's look at purchase building. So I hope semua kira asing purchase building and also constructed building. Right, so let's start with purchase building. Year assessment 2018. Okay. Kenapa saya letak initial allowance dekat sini? You all use the same rate 10% for initial allowance, 3% for annual allowance. Alright, so for purchase building tadi kita kata kita ambil cost of the building je, not the land. Okay. And looking at this information, both building were used in the manufacturing of steel from 2018. Walaupun bangunan ni dia beli in 2017. Nampak? Remember for initial allowance, kita kata biasa kita akan kira or the company is given the initial allowance in the year of purchase. Dia sebenarnya if they purchase in 2017, and dia guna the building in 2017, the initial allowance will be claimed in 2017. But now it's different. Dia beli in 2017, but the building, both building were used in 2018. So the initial allowance for the purchase building can only be claimed in 2018. Are you all with me? Sebab tu ada initial allowance dekat sini. If they purchase in 2017 and dia guna pun in 2017, in 2018, ini tak adalah. Now tak different case. Dia beli tahun lain, dia guna tahun lain. So we are interested in which year the company actually use the building. Okay, so you all dapat yang ni betul kan? Okay. So, okay. QBE 800,000, initial allowance 10%, annual allowance 3%, that will give us 104,000 IBA, and this one minus the IBA, jadi ada residual expenditure of 696,000. We can continue to 2019. So 2019 dia hanya akan dapat claim for annual allowance 3%. So 24,000, samalah. Annual allowance ni, you all jangan kira dengan sini tau. Dia bukan dengan residual expenditure. Annual allowance ni masih lagi dekat sini. So for annual allowance, you akan carry forward nombor yang sama je. 24 sama dengan 24. Short form apa tu? RE semua ni? Boleh lah. Because this is actually acceptable, apa ni kita kata short form yang memang kita faham lah. Alright, so this one residual expenditure 696, annual allowance 3%. So for at the end of year 2019, the residual expenditure for purchase building is 672,000. Tapi dalam jawapan banyak-banyak ni saya tak jumpa pun nombor 672 ni. Or you all nak kata tambahkan ini dengan ini pun macam bukan je kan. Okay, are you all with me? Semua dapat tak nombor ni? You can correct your answer kalau ada yang sesat-sesat tu Any question for purchase building? Kalau yang salah kat mana you all salah ni? Kejap lah. Kita kena asingkan. You have to compute one by one. So this is just the purchase building. Next one is constructed building. Lupa kira 2019. Oi, dalam ni dah kena dalam ni dah cakap kan. You have to compute the IBA for year assessment 2018 to 2019. 2 tahun. Salah sebab tak kira 2019, ya Allah. Suruh share slide ni, I share the slide. Salah campurkan dua-dua building. Okay, salah sebab sekalikan. Okay. Lupa kira 2019 ni teruk lah. Salah kira annual allowance. Termasuk initial allowance dalam 2019 dah pula. No, initial allowance sekali je. Nama dia initial. So initial tu is either tahun you construct, and dia actually the most important thing is that bila dia start guna tu, go back to previous slide last week punya when can you actually claim for the capital allowance? Bila kita guna bangunan tu sebagai bila kita guna bangunan tu in the business. Macam sebelum ni example saya letak dia kata dia purchase je. Right? My example before this I use purchase. So kita assume bila dia purchase dia terus guna. Here kita ada additional information ni. This is important. Walaupun dia purchase 2017, dia guna 2018. So initial allowance can be claimed in 2018. 2019 tak ada dah. Initial kan? Initial sekali je. Initial one. Annual allowance, yes, every year. Annual allowance macam saya kata tadi, the figure dia akan sama je annual allowance. Do not multiply 3% dengan 696, bukan. 3% ni, 24 ni, sama je dekat sini. Every year. Kalau suruh buat lagi sampai 2020, annual allowance kita would be 24,000 sampailah habis. Okay? Any question for purchase building before we move on to constructed building? Nasib baik buat sesama. Kau suruh hantar ni sampai semua salah Any other question tak untuk purchase building ni? Boleh faham Initial allowance sekali je. Ni kalau buat 2-3 kali ni, kalau dia depan mata malah kejentik lah ni. Sebab jauh kan, so tak nampak muka semua, nampak tulisan je kat sebelah ni. So I cannot tarik telinga or cubit or whatever Okay, next one is constructed building. Jangan pula kata, siapa tadi tanya constructed building, ada. We cannot combine. Kena asingkan, kira satu-satu macam ni. Okay, can we move on to constructed building? Boleh Boleh? Okay, alright. Tak sabarlah tengok jawapan kan. Okay, constructed building. Alright, so for constructed building, dia kata dia construct in 2018. So kita boleh ambil tiga-tiga ni tadi. Right, so this is our constructed building QBE. Mula-mula kira QBE dulu. So we have professional fees, construction cost and also road and car park. So the QBE would be 300,000. So they start guna the building in year 2018. So initial allowance 10%, 30,000, annual allowance 3%, 9,000. So total is 39,000 untuk 2018. Tolak ni dapatlah residual expenditure 261,000. So for year assessment, annual allowance is 3%, 9,000. Tak muat dah nak tulis RE kat sini. So our RE would be 261 minus 9,000. That will give us RM 252. Okay? Boleh? Yang ni ada salah tak? Ke betul je semua yang ni? So tadi saya nampak nombor macam-macam you bagi kan. Means that you combine both buildings. Tak boleh combine asingkan. Salah kat mana Afif? Tak masuk road. 2019 tak buat juga. Kenapa asingkan? Yes, kena asingkan. The allowance untuk satu building. Satu building, satu allowance. Kita tak boleh total semua campurkan, tak boleh. 2019 tak kira. Annual allowance darab dengan RE. No, bukan. So please be careful Annual allowance ni ini darab dengan ini. Okay, 3% times 300,000. Every year dia akan sama. Dia akan darab dengan QBE. Dia bukan darab dengan baki Annual allowance bukan darab dengan baki. Annual allowance darab dengan QBE. So annual allowance mesti darab dengan QBE. Bukan RE. Bukan residual expenditure. Road and car park masuk sebab ayat dia dekat sini ialah within the factory complex. Kalau road and car park tu tempat lain bukan within the factory complex, then kita tak boleh include lah. So here within the factory complex, so kita kena include Okay, kenapa kena asingkan Mari kita patah balik pergi tengok kat sini tadi. Industrial building, any structure. So satu bangunan, satu calculation. Sebab dekat sini, if you look at the definition here, expenditure either on the construction or purchase. Or both. In this case, Southern Steel ni dia ada both. Tapi kita kena kira satu-satu. Sebab cost of construction ni lain, cost of purchase tu pun lain. Even though the rate is sama. Macam kita kira plant and machinery lah. Dia ada 3 plant and machinery, kita kira satu-satu juga kan. And then hujung sekali, last sekali baru kita combine Okay, tak masukkan road and car park tu. Any question tak? In your textbook saya tak sempat nak go through. Mana yang ada textbook boleh tengok page 455. Tapi yang ni bukan industrial building lah. Ini ialah plant and machinery whereby you have different types of machinery and dia boleh tengok, dia kira satu-satu. Just like we calculate depreciation kan, kita ada 3 building, kita kira lah satu-satu. Sama juga dengan IBA ni, kita akan kira satu-satu. Cuma the total tu nanti, bila kita dah kira semua ni, total tu nanti baru kita bawa pergi sini. Current year capital allowance. Okay, apa yang kita kira IBA, plant and machinery allowance semua tu akan masuk dekat sini nanti. Kat sini baru kita tambahkan. But now kita masih lagi tengah belajar capital allowance, so you cannot combine lah. Kena kira, tapi this is how you do it. Kena kira satu-satu. Cuma nanti bila you nak bawa for year assessment, let's say kita tengah buat untuk year assessment 2018 kan, our allowance would be for 2018 104. 104 ni akan pergi ke our tax computation dalam yang atas tadi tu. And then for 2019 ini akan pergi ke our tax computation. Just like this one. So 2018 kalau ikutkan our capital expenditure for our IBA, let's say kita nak totalkan macam ni IBA for 2018. Okay, dia akan jadi 104 plus dengan apa tadi? 39,000. 39,000. Ini kalau you nak totalkan. Okay. And also IBA untuk 2019. But now soalan minta kita kira ni je. Year saya 2018, 2019. So kita kira satu-satu lah. You can also total if you want to. Boleh total macam ni. Tapi kena asingkan. Any other question tak? If no question, I will go very fast untuk part 3 ni. So part 3 ni saya tak ada provide calculation pun, but I want you to read other types of allowances. Okay, boleh saya proceed Alright. So in our part 3, you can continue to read. So there are other types of allowances. First, kita ada mining allowance. So mining allowance ni for business engaged in working mines lah. They extract all the minerals tu. Ini dia dapat mining allowances. Sama juga, dia akan ada QME pula. So banyak short form kat sini. So for mining allowances, kita akan kira QME. Sama je, basically the concept is similar to QBE and also QPE. So termasuklah cost of site, prospecting expenses, whatever ni akan jadi QME. And next kita ada prospecting expenditure. Mining tadi you dah extract the minerals tau untuk mining expenditure, mining allowance tu. Prospecting expenditure or prospecting allowance ni baru tengah cari prospect, baru tengah pergi cari tempat yang ada minerals ataupun tidak. Can also claim for allowance. So untuk income tax dia memang bagilah. So tadi mining dia memang in the business of extracting minerals. Okay, prospecting ni baru cari pergi cari tempat-tempat yang ada prospek untuk extract the minerals juga. Searching, nampak dia kata dapat rights for searching or discovering. Baru nak pergi cari tempat yang ada minyak, nak pergi cari especially the minerals lah. Tempat yang ada timah, ada ore apa semua tu baru nak pergi cari. Ini dia dah start extract lah. Okay, pun ada qualifying prospecting expenditure. Ini saya go through macam ni je lah so that you all can read. And last one kita ada agriculture allowance. Ini untuk business plantation lah, tanam padi, tanam kelapa sawit semua ni. Right, farming activities, cultivation of crops, tanam jagung semua ni can also claim for agriculture allowance. So income tax ni is very comprehensive. They cover every industry. Dia ada, setiap industri tu akan ada the special allowance dia. Okay, so untuk agriculture allowance pun ada clearing, preparing land for the purpose of agriculture. This is the rates for agriculture allowance. And last one kita ada forest allowance. Ini untuk yang extraction of timber, yang balak ni masuk hutan, sebab tu nama dia forest allowance. Okay, so these are actually different types of capital allowance provided by DG. So in our textbook ni ada banyak juga example that you can go through. Saya tak go through one by one lah because the concept is similar to IBA dengan plant and machinery je. Right, so kita akan start dengan calculating the qualifying expenditure dia. Dah dapat qualifying expenditure dia, kita akan kira for initial allowance and also annual allowance. Just like what we did with our building tadi. Right? So the last part is part of an asset no longer used for business. Ini tak ada apalah. Ini kalau if we dispose kita akan ada balancing allowance, so balancing charge. You have any question tak? So I've already told you there will be no class next week on Wednesday. Saya nak keluar pergi observe student internship saya tu. Yang tak tahu apa cerita dia orang kat situ. And also you can take that as your extra time to complete your group assignments. And I think most of you already been informed maybe by your other lecturers about our final assessment. Saya malas nak komen panjang-panjang. Like I told you, our final exam component is still there, but the format would be different lah. So in our case for taxation paper, that would be a at-home assessment, at-home exam. And regarding the dates and also the time tu, nanti saya akan discuss balik lah, sebab I don't actually agree with the whatever that our TNCA suggest tu. Dia kata untuk masa 3 weeks tu, you will get the question and you have to complete the exam or the project, whatever, in 3 weeks time, which is to me defeat the purpose of testing your knowledge lah, because in our case, I actually prepared the question for you to answer in 3 hours time. So plus lagi maybe 1 hour for you to upload and submit the answer, whatever tu kan. But yeah, kita tengoklah nanti macam mana. You have any questions? So don't forget to upload your answer. Saya dah buat platform dekat Google Classroom. So please upload your answer dekat situ. Whatever you answer tadi, you can do correction. Saya set the last date would be next Tuesday. So before Wednesday lah, you have time untuk ambil masa dan upload. I am still marking your midterm exam. Ada lagi 2 soalan, very slow sebab kena mark online. So I've written your capital allowance quiz, and I think you can view your marks untuk soalan section question 1, section A and also section C. Walaupun markah tu saya belum finalize, but I think you can view already, sebab bila saya edit your paper tu, dia keluar dekat situ draft kan, and I'm sure you all can view the marks. And please, if ada some of you yang share the drive with me, please make sure I can access. Okay, so mungkin kita dah lama dah baru saya nak request access. Yes, sebab saya baru nak marking. But the rest yang kalau tak ada masalah tu, because if you upload straight away, memang saya boleh view lah, except that yang share through drive tu. So yang share through drive, please allow access lah. Kalau tak, saya malas nak request access, saya biar je, dan you don't have any marks kat situ. So later on, when you submit your assignment, when you submit your take-home exam later on, please make sure tak payah guna drive tu lah. We just upload straight away. Kalau ada setting untuk share drive, then tak payah enable the settings. But later on, if you do not share with me the link, I have to request access pula. So burden for me and also for you. Alright, any other questions before we stop? So today pun tak ada kerja because the tutorial kita dah buat hari ni, and I expect you to submit. But if I have other questions on capital allowance ni, I will let you know bila saya boleh upload later. Kalau ada lagi lah nak tengok IBA tutorial. Jawapan dia which one? This one? Constructed or purchase? Kedua-dua? Yang ni, okay. Yeah. Yang kita baru buat ni, purchase dengan constructed building hantar je balik yang ni. You nak snap picture ke, or if you dah buat cantik-cantik dekat Word or Excel, so boleh submit je. And I will upload the today's video later. Dia takes time untuk dia record. Share slide yang comot ni. Okay, nanti saya update. Alright, any other questions? If you have no questions, I think that's all for today. Kita masih lagi within limit. Saya ambil up to 2 hours je for our online Google Meet ni. No question? Slide lagi satu, yang mana ni? Okay, dah No question? Alright, so if you have no question, thank you very much. I'll see you when I see you. So next week tak ada kelas jangan nak join pula. Alright, stay safe and take care. Okay, thank you. No problem. Alright, okay, thank you. See you later.